Hey, so I guess my last random ramble video actually kind of did well, and I really enjoyed the comments that were being made while it was still in the algorithm. So I guess we're gonna do another one, because I got way more to say about this game. Now you might be wondering what the topic is going to be for today, and well, it's in the title of the video. We're talking about solo queue. Specifically, we're talking about Anarchy Battle and X Battle to some extent as well. I'm not currently in X Battle, but that's because of the fact that I've barely played Anarchy series this season, as you can see. And the couple times I have played, I've gone 2 and 3. It happens. And that's kind of part of the point. My opinion is that the matchmaking system in this game is deeply flawed in many, many ways. Specifically when it comes to the competitive scene. Now, funny enough, let's get this out of the way. Regular battle, turf war, honestly perfect. There's not really anything that I can say about how turf war works that is, like, bad. You have the ability to drop in on friends, to either be a part of their team or against their team. That's really nice. And in official tournaments that have a turf war stage, which is pretty much every single Nintendo tournament, there's always a turf war stage. And the theory for turf war is essentially don't die, paint the map. It's not particularly hard. There's not a lot of strategy that goes into it beyond the greater theory crafting that goes on when you're building a team. Now, I will say I am greatly summarizing, and that's because of the fact that turf war is really not the focus of this video. The focus is more on these two right now. Let me talk about Anarchy Open first. Anarchy Open is a very good addition to the series compared to what we had previously, in terms of being able to jump into a ranked mode and not have to care about, like, losing points in your rank. Like, yes, you do gain and lose points for wins and losses, but they hardly affect your rank unless you end up going on a huge streak in either direction. And I think the general chaos that can unfold from just throwing 8 random players into a lobby and just seeing what happens is fine. It's like the in-between between casual and, like, serious play. That being said, I do think that Anarchy Battle is still flawed, that Anarchy Open specifically is still flawed. I don't see a reason why it has to adhere to the same sort of restrictions as Anarchy series in terms of only having 1 mode available in 2 stages. I think that you can easily make it so that there are multiple modes or even more stages available for Anarchy Open, because it's kind of supposed to be a more casual mode. I don't see a reason why we can't have more of a rotation going on, especially since during Splatfests, particularly during Grand Fest or any other equivalent from previous games, you are able to queue into literally any tricolor map in day 2. So there's definitely the capacity for the game that the series has in order to just give you any map in the game in a rotation. Even limited to a specific mode or not. Like, you could do that and that would be fine. So I think that could definitely be an improvement. Alright, but that's basically all. That's basically the main thing that I had to say about Anarchy Open. Let's talk about Anarchy series. So, whether or not you prefer the system that was present in Splatoon 2 versus Splatoon 3, I think is up for debate. Whether you're trying to win a 5-game series by getting as many wins as possible before you lose 3. Yeah, that's fine. That's a fine system. It's honestly not too bad it's pretty forgiving. Actually, it might be a little too forgiving, in my opinion. What you can do in Anarchy series for a good long while is you can essentially just kind of go completely neutral or get small gains just from getting 2 wins. Around S is where you stop is where you're more likely to go even unless you end up getting golds for every single one of your games, which I've done several times at this point. Kind of recently, I ended up like finishing up a series on this note, and this ended up becoming like, oh, well, I guess we're, well, I guess we finished the series, and I have gained 10 points. Yay. So the point I'm trying to make with that is that it's really, really easy to get up in the ranks. I remember in Splatoon 2, it was a absolute grind to make it into S+, and then again into X. I only ever did it in 2 modes in Splatoon 2. And that was like right at the end of the game too. Like I did not have very much time afterwards in order to even like hang around in X before Splatoon 3 came out. Plus, I was still much worse at the game, so I kind of just dropped out of X, like, very easily. But I digress. Now, getting into X is honestly not hard at all. The fact that you basically just have to play Anarchy series for long enough until the game lets you in, it feels like it's more playtime rewarded than actual skill rewarded. Instead of rewarding consistency, it's really rewarding persistence. And I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing for X Battle, unless the matchmaking systems, unless you have pretty aggressive matchmaking in terms of trying to match the right powers of players together in X Battle. And the waters got muddied there as well. Because one problem that I'm having with X Battles lately is the fact that in X Battle, you end up with 2 divisions. You have the Tenatech division and the Takaroka division, and pretty much everyone, I don't know if this is still true, but like from very early on into the game, pretty much every competitive player started migrating over to the division that's supposed to be meant for JP and Oceania players. Likewise, I have also heard tell of like the other way around, of Japanese players coming over to the Tenatech division for other reasons. Whether it's to have an easier or harder time, because the Tenatech division, the North American division, and more accurately, the rest of the world division, is supposed to be the one that is easier. This is largely because of a conception, possibly a misconception, that Japan is generally better at the game than the rest of the world. And while I think there is some truth to that, I don't think the gap is quite as wide as people are led to believe. The fact that that can happen, and people will end up... The fact that that can happen is a bit of a problem. The fact that you can choose which division that you're in order, like, not based on region, but based on just, like, whether or not you can just... Whether or not you want to have a harder challenge versus whether or you want to try and stomp people for, like, a high power. I feel like that's encouraging the wrong sorts of behavior when it comes to a matchmaking system that's supposed to be, like, some sort of way of evaluating your skill in the game. Because that's what X Power is often used for in the competitive scene, at least in North America, in, like, English-speaking regions. You see a lot on team recruitment posts that sometimes people are looking for a specific level of X Power. Usually, like, for a lower level team, I'll usually see around, like, 2100, 2200, and for, like, higher level teams, it's like, oh, well, maybe you need to get, like, up to 2500. Higher level, I more mean mid-level, but still. That's not universal, because some people correctly identify that X power as a measurement of your skill in team play is completely fucking nonsense. It's just, it just doesn't work. We're past the 10-minute mark, I can swear. I don't see how solo play in this game can possibly translate into team play other than pure mechanical skill with your weapon. There is still, since Splatoon 1, no way to communicate with your team other than with the pings. And this is the only one that actually has any use, where you want to draw someone's attention for one reason or another, either because you want them to follow you or you want them to help with the fight or something like that, as well as the ouch ping to let teammates know, hey, I've been splatted, there are enemies nearby. And then there's this, which I guess is just kind of like a morale booster. It's kind of the only use I've found for Booyah. It's a morale booster and the Booyah Bomb charge button. That's basically it. And we still have 2 buttons on the D-pad that are just not doing anything. Why can we not have a few more pings? Like, this has been a suggestion ever since Splatoon 1. I have seen these suggestions go around all the time. Just 2 more commutative pings so that we can actually start trying to facilitate team play a little bit more in solo queue. Because right now, the go-to strategy in solo queue is basically pick a self-sufficient weapon and just try your best to carry. And, like, you need a self-sufficient weapon in order to have consistent success in solo queue. If you don't have a weapon that can fight, can kill people, and can easily move about the map, then you're at a disadvantage in solo queue. You just kind of are. If you get good enough of a weapon that you can, like, start oppressively shutting down the entire enemy team, then that can help, but that's only going to work for so long. That makes you a matchmaking anomaly that's going to get pushed into higher and higher powers, into stronger lobbies, until eventually you stop running into those people that you can stomp so effortlessly with your skill level. Is what I would be saying if it wasn't for the fact that this game's matchmaking is still deeply flawed, and the fact that it's still possible for that to happen both in Anarchy Open and in Anarchy Series, because in Anarchy Series, once you hit S+, you're basically just in a pool full of all of the other S+ people, and to my knowledge, there is no further matchmaking done at all from that as well. What's also really terrible about S+ Series is the fact that, unlike X Battle, there is no weapon matchmaking. You don't get paired alongside other people on the enemy team with weapons that are similar to the weapons that your team rolled. So you have teams that end up completely random, ones that would never, ever be picked together in a competitive setting. Going up against weapon comps that are thought to be equivalent by the developers, and we still don't really have any sort of explainers as to why the weapons are paired the way that they are. We can kind of assume, but there's never been an official explanation for it. So, like, what's the deal with that, then? How are we supposed to use Anarchy Series after we've hit X Battle at that point? The answer is it's just Anarchy Open again. We have created 2 modes that do the exact same thing once you pass the threshold that gets you into X Battle. Series becomes a casual mode that you get to play ranked modes in without having to worry about your rank. The only threshold that matters is getting over S plus 10, so you don't have to unlock X Battle again at the start of every season. At that point, why am I bothering to try hard in Series at all? And thus, once you start realizing that, you start not trying as hard in Series, which reduces the overall usefulness of the mode in order to, you know, actually improve the game. People are less likely to coordinate when they're taking things casually. People are less likely to actually try and play for objective. They're trying to get the biggest KDAs that they can possibly manage, get big numbers so they can post a screenshot on Twitter or something. And that's all fine and good for like a casual environment, but Splatoon does definitely have the air of wanting to try to onboard people into a competitive scene. And the only reason I say that is because of the fact that also there aren't really too many rewards for solo queue that are like actually worth something to everyone. There aren't any sort of like weapon skins or customizations that you can unlock for getting a high rank, even if it's just a color variant or something like that. The only thing that you can really unlock are like badges. Like I don't have like, yeah, like this is the best one I've got. I've got like I've gotten one for the Tech division that puts me in top 30k X Battle. Woohoo. That's not a particularly hard one to earn, especially considering that, like, as a community, it's considered, but, like, you know, X Battle isn't really prestigious in the Tech division. I would argue it's not even that prestigious in the Takaroka division, because you're playing a completely different game compared to what you're playing in competitive tournaments. In competitive tournaments, you're communicating with your team via voice all the time. You've got team comps that you've tested in scrims. You've got strategies for every map and mode that you've needed to practice on that show up in tournaments. And you have none of that in solo play. And that moves the needle a lot on whether or not these are even viable for practice. And it turns out, I really don't think that they are. Solo queue in this game is just not useful for actually trying to onboard people into competitive play. The only thing it teaches you is mechanical skill and game sense. Both things are really, really useful skills to have, but it's also really hard for a lot of people to develop the skills that they need in order to read situations in a game very accurately and efficiently, like within the fast pace of Splatoon 3, especially if they're just throwing themselves into solo queue trying to get a high power. That sort of thinking is much more easily figured out with a team that is trying to achieve a goal. Whether you're on a low-level team trying to break into mid-level, or a mid-level team trying to break into high-level, etc. Heck, even if you're just starting out and just trying to win a weekly, like from the Ink Up, like, you just kind of need to have the right environment in order to develop the skills you need in order to do well. Otherwise, you're just going to end up floundering onto a team that barely knows what they're doing and disbanding after a month. This is the story that is unfortunately all too common in the scene, and I'm really upset about the fact that that's the norm. And I think a lot of these problems just stem from the fact that solo queue doesn't do enough. I think if we're going to have open as the casual ranked ladder, then Series needs to have its own identity that is useful to competitive play to X Battle. Because as it stands right now, if you replace Series with X Battle, which is what Splatoon 2 did, you would feel functionally no difference. You would feel just a general improvement over your solo queue play. I am very, very strongly believing of that. And you want to know. You want to know what would actually solve a lot of problems when in regards to trying to coordinate better team play environments? Because Anarchy Open is still kind of bad for that. Because of the fact that even if you queue as a 4-stack, you can sometimes just get matched into a team of people who aren't a 4-stack. League battles. Remember those? Remember when you can queue as a pair or as a team of 4 into a ranked rotation and only get matched up into other pairs or teams of 4? That was nice, wasn't it? Yeah, that sort of environment where there's like incentives to like chase a high power and practice against other teams would be extremely useful. But like literally just having a mode that would just actually be like purely built on team play would be great. Like, hell, actually, I would love to see Anarchy series basically morph into I would love to just see, like, either Anarchy series or X Battles as they are need to get reworked into a team play ladder. Like, give us a separate rank for solo play and for team play. And let us grind the team play rank on a per team basis. You have to have the same 4 people with the same friend codes and everything, probably, in order to have that rank climb. And your highest rank is determined by however high you reached with that team. It's probably going to feel bad having to reset back at, like, whatever the low number is. It probably wouldn't even be represented by the letter grades. It would probably just be, like, we'd probably just use power. Maybe there's certain milestones you can reach where you initially start at a higher power if you've reached a certain threshold. Legitimately, like, and I don't want it resetting on a rotation basis. I want this to be persistent, because then it makes it much easier for higher level teams for any competitive team to find people of around their same skill level. As long as they're consistent about the people they're bringing in, then that would be a really good alternative. At least I think so. It could completely flop. I'm not a game designer, again, so there could be some deep flaws with my ideas. But I still wanted to get them out there, because, yeah, I'm still not really happy about how solo queue works right now. I think that Splatoon 4 or whatever ends up happening next could do a lot in order to make the experience more palatable. I honestly feel as if the weapon matchmaking system that is used in X Battle should be present in any mode that has a meaningful impact on your rank. I would love to see it in series as well, because it would also lead to a few less lopsided matchups that you would see in Anarchy, like, pretty constantly. Like, just looking through some of my history, you can kind of see that, like, the team comps that you can run into in Anarchy series are a little silly. If you know anything about how competitive Splatoon works, a lot of the matchups that you see in solo queue basically kind of boil down to, oh, I just lose, or oh, I just win, and you can tell that, and if you have enough experience, you can tell that just from the team comp. And it's usually not so dire where it's just, oh, I just lose, but it does mean that one member of either team needs to hard carry in order to actually get anyone anywhere in that match. Like, sometimes you just roll into a matchup and there's no paint and it zones. Hi, I'm a blaster main. I know how that feels. Yes, I can paint in blood and keep myself alive, but no, I can't actually paint the zone really hard when it needs to, when it needs to be painted. I have a suction bomb and or a splat bomb, and one of the worst painting weapons in the game. So at that point, I just have to wonder, like, is it worth having completely random team comps in something like Anarchy series? I really don't think so. And honestly, the feel of solo queue not being able of like being out of your control like that is really frustrating, especially in a game like this where it's actually harder to solo carry compared to Splatoon 2, and heck, even Splatoon 1. In Splatoon 1, you had any number of broken specials that you could use to your advantage to quickly climb the ranks. Whether it was just the absurd amount of lethal shots you got on Zuka, or the stupid invincibility of Bubbler and Kraken, or even just the perfect information you got from Echolocator. And calling Echolocator broken is a fucking fool's errand, I know, but in solo queue, you can make use of that information very well. It can be shockingly debilitating when, you know, other people might be relying on sharking strats in order to get anywhere in solo. Mostly roller players. But I digress. At the very least, if we're not going to be matching based on the main weapons, then matching based on the special weapons should also be a consideration. Like, clearly classifying weapons as, like, more aggressive, supportive, or, like, you know, supposed to be useful for, like, breaking a hold or whatever. That would actually be a lot more useful in order to, like, use for matchmaking, so that every team at least has a way of breaking the enemy line. Every team has a way of supporting the team. Every team has a way of, like, pushing their advantage. And trying to balance the team comps around having the same number of those specials could be actually a better alternative to just main weapon balancing. Because ultimately, the special weapons is going to be what makes or breaks a team in Splatoon. Like, Range Blaster sees play despite the fact that it has 2 fairly mediocre special. Like, it makes good use of the Wave Breaker, but it's still a Wave Breaker. This is still... You jump over the line and the special does nothing. Yeah, the location effect is strong, but I mean, you can just pair with a custom well string, and all of a sudden, like, you have the location effects and you don't need the Wave Breaker, so why are you even bothering? You just pick Kraken at that point. Kraken's also kind of flawed because of the fact that it's a really hard special to get value out of. And its usefulness depends heavily on the ranked mode. Like, Tower, it's not very useful anymore because of the fact that it's so easily shoved off. Flames, you don't have Kraken Cheese anymore. It's a recall special in terms of how the map handles it. So you can't do that unless you're already at the basket, which most teams will not let you do unless you're already winning. Then there's also situations like Rainmaker, where it actually has legitimate use because of the fact that it can just charge into the Rainmaker shield or the Rainmaker itself and get a few free points. Because there's no way to react to that. And then there's also instances like... And then there's instances like Zone, where it's like, it kind of feels bad to be bringing a Kraken unless you're able to, like, again, paint the map in blood. And that's just one weapon that I'm talking about, which is got a strong main weapon, but kind of needs help in the special department in order to do anything. A Range Blaster is not going to help you with retake, like, at all. It doesn't matter what kit you pick. The only thing that it's going to help you with is punishing aggressive mistakes from the enemy team with the main weapon. The special is not helping you there. And that is relying on your opponents to make a mistake. It is a reactive strategy. It is not a proactive one. And being proactive is kind of how this game wants to flow. You don't, with how fast everything moves, you can't have everything be reactive. You need to pop that Zuka and get a pick on the enemy backline. You need to pop that Tri-Strike and shred the bubble that's in zone. You need to pop that. You need to pop the Inkjet and distract half the enemy team. That's the kind of specials that you need in order to be successful, and sometimes you just don't roll them. You just have to rely on the more supportive specials, or, you know, you just don't get one of the supportive specials, and that feels bad too. Like, anytime that you queue into solo queue, one of the teams has a tacticooler and the other one doesn't, feels awful, because now all of a sudden you need to know how coolerless works versus a team that can just use cooler, which most competitive teams know how to play around because that's the meta we're in right now. The meta game revolves around Tacticooler. Every single decision that's being made is being made with Tacticooler in mind. It is assumed that you're running Tacticooler on your team unless you have good reason not to, which is usually if you're running a dive team or something like that. And you can't remedy any of these situations in solo queue. It all goes back down to, again, you can't communicate. You can't control what weapons you get. You can't control what kind of... The only thing you can control is what maps and what modes that you play on. And guess what? X-Power requires you to play on all 4 modes separately in order to have, like, a consistently good X-Power. Like, you can say like, oh yeah, I have a 2400 X power in tower control, and then someone asks you, okay, what's your zone's power? Oh, it's 1800. Doesn't look good. Granted, I think most people just ask for your peak, but still, if anyone decides to like take that extra step to verify that you're not being bullshit, like, that's just the thing. At this point, I think I'm talking in circles, but yeah, no, I'm not happy with solo queue right now. It's probably one of the main reasons why I don't find this game very satisfying to grind, outside of playing in tournaments. There's not enough reward for it. It kind of feels like I'm just kind of rolling the bones with every single weapon that I've tried to do anything with. And, like, it's not like I haven't tried to do stuff in matchmaking. I have 4-starred a fair amount of weapons at this point. But, like, you might notice that a lot of them are also weapons that require a team. That can help make up for the deficiencies they have. You can't exactly queue into solo queue and just have an easy time anymore. Like, the easiest way that you can do it is if you're playing something like a short-range shooter. But even then you start having trouble with mid-lines. Now you deal with mid-lines. Well, you need other people. If Splatoon wants to have team coordination as one of the core pillars of how its gameplay works, solo queue needs to be improved to reflect that. And while I've been spitballing a whole bunch of ideas for how you can do that, it's on the devs to do it. And I really think that that needs to be a priority in Splatoon 4, because otherwise the onboarding process into the competitive scene is still going to be as rough as it is today. That's a problem. And I hope it gets solved. Let me know in the comments if you've got any other suggestions for how you'd like to see solo queue improved. Multiplayer maps and modes that have been updated. And on that note, I think I'm gone. Bye-bye.